What if the most desperate plea for a job brought a ray of light into the life of a lonely billionaire, whose heart was walled off by grief? And what if that unexpected connection shattered everything he thought he knew about wealth and happiness? Before we unravel this profound story of transformation and second chances, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and tell us in the comments if you believe fate works in mysterious ways. The first light of dawn filtered weakly through the worn curtains of the small apartment, where Valeria Ramos gently swayed her son, Emilio. The 6-month-old baby dozed peacefully against her chest, while she, for the umpteenth time, scanned the newspaper classifieds, circling potential jobs with trembling fingers. "Today will be different, my love," she whispered to the tiny boy, kissing his forehead. The stack of unpaid bills on the dilapidated table served as a stark, relentless reminder of the urgency of her situation. Ever since Emilio's father had abandoned them, every single day was a raw struggle for survival on the bustling, indifferent streets of Mexico City. On the other side of the vast metropolis, in the exclusive Las Lomas neighborhood, Julian Vargas gazed at the urban horizon from his office on the top floor of his sprawling Vargas estate. At 40 years old, he had meticulously built a real estate empire that rivaled the one he inherited from his father. Businesses, properties, investments, everything functioned with the cold, precise efficiency of a Swiss watch. Everything, that is, except his heart. Since the tragic death of Clara, his beloved wife, 2 years ago, a suffocating silence had invaded every corner of his home. A silence so profound, even the constant visits from his mother, Donna Sofia, failed to break it. "It's time, Julian," she would insist during her weekly visits, her voice firm. "Gabriel needs a mother, and you need another heir. Think of the legacy, Ortega." Julian always responded with a polite, empty smile, while he watched his 6-year-old son, Gabriel, play alone in the immense garden. Gabriel was a quiet child, with his mother's large, curious eyes. He spent his afternoons surrounded by expensive toys he barely touched, too engrossed in drawing in his worn sketchbook. He always drew the same thing: a family of 3 people holding hands. The day Valeria arrived at the Vargas estate, it was raining. She clutched a small suitcase containing all her earthly possessions, her heart racing with a mix of nerves and desperate hope. The housekeeper, Maria, a woman with a severe expression and an impeccably starched uniform, greeted her with a scrutinizing gaze. "Mr. Vargas expects punctuality and discretion," Maria warned, as she led Valeria through the sprawling house. "We do not tolerate familiarity with the family, especially with the boy." The mansion was easily 10 times larger than the modest house Valeria had grown up in. The marble staircases, the crystal chandeliers, the floors that gleamed like mirrors, everything seemed plucked from a glossy magazine, as beautiful as it was intimidating. It was in the vast, pristine kitchen that Valeria first met Gabriel. The boy appeared silently while she organized her few belongings in the small, cramped servants' quarters. "Hello," the child said, his voice barely audible. "Are you the new one?" Valeria knelt to be at his height. "My name is Valeria. And you?" "Gabriel," he responded, extending his small hand with a formality that was heartbreaking in a child so young. "Do you know how to make cookies?" "Maria never wants to make cookies with me." Before Valeria could answer, Donna Sofia appeared in the doorway, impeccably dressed in a designer gown and a perfectly placed pearl necklace. "Gabriel, your piano teacher is waiting," she said, her voice firm, leaving no room for argument. Then she turned her gaze to Valeria. "And you, young lady? You must remember your place in this house." That night, Julian Vargas dined alone, as always, in the formal main dining room. Gabriel was already in bed. From the kitchen, Elena observed the powerful businessman. His shoulders tense, his gaze lost in the expensive food he barely tasted, as profoundly alone as his son. 2 completely separate worlds coexisted under the same roof of marble and glass, one of immense privilege and chilling solitude, the other of humble service and aching longing. But destiny, with its usual irony, had already begun to weave the threads that would intricately unite these disparate realities. starting with a lonely child and his simple drawings of happy families. What do you think is the true cost of Julian's wealth and isolation? And how do you believe Gabriel's innocence will begin to break through the mansion's cold facade? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this compelling story of human connection has you intrigued, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next powerful chapter. 3 months had passed since Valeria arrived at the Vargas estate. Slowly, she had found a rhythm in her new life. Mornings were for cleaning and organizing, afternoons for Gabriel. Although it wasn't officially part of her duties, the boy sought her out constantly, and she simply couldn't refuse him. "Will you help me with my homework, Valeria?" Gabriel would ask, appearing in the kitchen with his notebooks. "Oh, can we make cookies today?" Each smile she managed to coax from the little boy felt like a personal victory. Sometimes, as they read stories together or drew in the sprawling garden, Valeria thought of her younger siblings, so far away now. The money she sent home each month justified the distance, she repeated to herself over and over. Julian, meanwhile, began to notice subtle changes in his son. Gabriel talked more during dinners, recounting anecdotes about the cookies he baked with Valeria or the story Valeria had read to him, small details that brought a fleeting smile to Julian's usually serious face. One afternoon, while reviewing documents in his study, Julian heard laughter drifting in from the garden. He peered through the window and saw Gabriel running after Valeria, both playing some game that involved catching imaginary butterflies. It had been so long since he'd heard his son laugh like that, so uninhibited, so joyful. That very day, Donna Sofia arrived unannounced, as was her custom. She found Julian gazing out the window. "What are you staring at so intently?" she asked, joining him. Upon seeing Valeria with Gabriel, her brow furrowed. "This is precisely what I warned you about, Julian. Servants taking liberties. The boy needs a real mother, not some improvised nanny." Julian didn't respond immediately, his eyes still fixed on the scene in the garden. "Gabriel is happy," he said finally, his voice quiet. "Happy?" Donna Sofia scoffed. "Gabriel needs structure, discipline, someone to teach him to be a Vargas. Look, I've organized a brunch for this Sunday. The Mendoza daughters will be there, the Serrano widow, all excellent candidates." The pressure to remarry was constant, not just from his mother, but also from his business partners. A respectable businessman needed a wife, a complete image. "I don't want another marriage of convenience, Mama," Julian sighed, the weariness evident in his voice. "And what do you suggest then?" "Staying alone until Gabriel goes to university." After a long silence, Julian had an idea, one that even he found absurd. "I'll let Gabriel choose," he said, surprising even himself. "What?" Donna Sofia looked at him in horror. "He's a 6-year-old boy." "Exactly," Julian replied, his lips curving into a faint, defiant smile. "Children see things we don't." Do you think Julian's plan to let Gabriel choose his mother is truly absurd, or a stroke of genius? What kind of chaos do you predict at the brunch? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this intriguing twist has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of this dramatic tale. Sunday arrived, and the Vargas estate was transformed for the event. Fresh flowers adorned every surface, elegant canapes were arranged on silver trays, and soft classical music filled the air. The invited guests arrived punctually: heiresses, influential businesswomen, wealthy widows, the creme de la creme of Mexican society, all dressed to impress. Valeria worked diligently in the kitchen, helping with the final preparations. For the occasion, she wore the formal uniform: a black skirt, a crisp white blouse, and a discreet apron. Her job was to serve drinks and ensure everything was in order, a graceful, efficient presence that was meant to be invisible. Mid-afternoon, Julian gathered his courage to implement his audacious plan. In a brief lull in the festivities, he called Gabriel to his side and cleared his throat to capture the attention of his guests. "I want to thank you all for coming today," he began with the charming smile he reserved for high-stakes negotiations. "As some of you know, I've been considering the possibility of rebuilding my life, and someone wisely suggested that I should consider what my son thinks about it. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. The female guests smiled, each discreetly adjusting her posture, hopes quietly flaring. Julian knelt beside Gabriel and whispered, "Is there anyone here you would like to be part of our family?" The little boy looked around with his large, curious brown eyes, observing each face carefully. Then, without a moment's hesitation, he pointed directly to the back of the room. "I want Valeria," he said, his voice clear and filled with the absolute conviction only children possess. A stunned silence fell over the room, thick and immediate. Valeria, who at that very moment was serving champagne, nearly dropped the tray. Her cheeks flushed a deep crimson, as all eyes in the room pierced her. Some guests chuckled nervously, as if it were a charming, amusing joke. Others exchanged disapproving glances, their expressions tightening. Donna Sofia paled, then her face contorted into a mask of barely contained fury. "Gabriel, darling," she quickly intervened, her voice strained. "Valeria works for us. She can't." But the boy had already run towards Valeria and was clinging to her skirt, looking defiantly up at his grandmother. Julian remained motionless, his gaze alternating between his son, Valeria, and his mother. In the young maid's eyes, he saw shame, confusion, and something else he couldn't quite identify, something that, for some inexplicable reason, made him feel more alive than he had in years. How do you think Julian will respond to Gabriel's unexpected choice? And what will be the immediate fallout from this public declaration? Share your predictions in the comments below. If this dramatic revelation has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of this unfolding tale. The morning after the disastrous brunch, Valeria entered Julian's study, her hands trembling. She carried a crisp white envelope. "Mr. Vargas, I need to speak with you," she said, her gaze fixed on the floor, unable to meet his eyes. Julian looked up from his documents. He had slept little, mentally replaying the humiliating scene from the previous day. "Come in, Valeria. I've come to hand in my resignation," she said, extending the envelope. "I believe it's for the best after what happened yesterday." Julian took the envelope but didn't open it. He placed it on his desk and observed the young woman. She looked utterly exhausted, as if she, too, had spent the night wrestling with the events. "Is that truly what you want?" he asked, his voice softer than she expected. "It's the right thing to do," Valeria responded, her voice strained. "Donna Sofia made it very clear that my presence is inappropriate." Julian sighed. His mother had thrown a scandalous fit after the guests left. "That girl is manipulating Gabriel," she had screamed. "Don't you see what she's trying to do? Marry the boss." "My mother has very traditional opinions," Julian said finally, breaking the heavy silence. "But Gabriel values you very much." He hesitated, then added, his voice low, "If you leave like this without saying goodbye." He didn't finish the sentence. Both knew exactly what another abrupt loss would mean for the boy. "I'll give you 2 weeks to find a replacement," Valeria conceded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "I'll say goodbye to Gabriel properly." But those 2 weeks never came to pass. On the third day, when Gabriel discovered Valeria was leaving, the boy erupted into a heartbroken tantrum no one in the house knew how to handle. He locked himself in his room, refusing to come out to eat or to speak to anyone. "I want Valeria," was the only thing he would cry between sobs. Julian, desperate, called Valeria to his office again. "I can't let you leave," he said without preamble, the raw fear in his voice astonishing even himself. "Gabriel can't handle it. Mr. Vargas, please understand my position." Valeria began, her voice pleading. "Your mother, the rumors in the house, what people will think. I don't give a damn what they think." Julian cut her off, surprising himself with the vehemence of his words. Then, more calmly, "I have a proposal. The Vargas Foundation needs an administrative assistant. It's an office job away from the mansion. Gabriel could see you on weekends as a family friend, and no one would have to say a word. Valeria looked at him intently for the first time, a flicker of something new in her eyes. I don't need your charity, Mr. Vargas. I can find another job. It's not charity, Julian insisted, a rare awkwardness in his demeanor under her direct gaze. It's a practical solution. Gabriel needs you. Valeria bit her lip, considering. She thought of the boy, of his sad eyes so much like his father's, of the envelope with money she had sent home just yesterday, of her studies she would have to abandon if she couldn't find an equally well-paying job. I'll do it for Gabriel, she said finally, the words a silent promise to the boy who had unknowingly captured her heart. But with one condition. I want to continue my studies. I'll need flexible hours for my classes. Julian nodded, a profound wave of relief washing over him. Done. Do you think Julian's offer is truly a practical solution? Or is he finally acknowledging his own needs? And what impact will this unexpected job have on Valeria's life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this pivotal moment has you intrigued, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their unfolding story. That afternoon, as Gabriel celebrated the news with a radiant smile that lit up the entire house, Julian and Valeria sat together in the sprawling garden. The sun had begun to set, painting the sky in vibrant orange and pink hues. There's something you should know, Valeria said after a long silence, her voice soft. I knew your wife. Julian looked at her, genuinely surprised. Clara? How? Years ago, when my father fell ill and we were about to lose our home, she managed a relief program in my village. The Vargas Foundation saved my family. She gave us an interest-free loan. Valeria paused, a bittersweet memory. Miss Clara recognized me when I came to apply for the job. She was the one who insisted on hiring me. Julian was speechless. Clara had never mentioned Valeria to him. But that was just like her, generous without fanfare, always finding quiet ways to help. Gabriel is very much like her, Valeria continued, her voice filled with tenderness. Not just physically. He has her kindness. Julian felt something break inside him, a fissure in the formidable armor he had built around his heart since Clara's death. Yes, it's true, he managed to say, his voice slightly choked. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was a shared silence, almost comforting, filled with the weight of unspoken truths and the fragile promise of a future. For the first time in a very long time, Julian felt like he could breathe fully. The days that followed Valeria's surprising new employment brought a fresh routine. She began working at the Vargas Foundation offices, organizing charity events and coordinating donations. On weekends, when Gabriel visited her, they would go to the park or museums, always accompanied by the family chauffeur, a precaution Julian insisted upon to avoid gossip. Donna Sofia observed these changes with evident disapproval, but she maintained a calculated silence, choosing to wait and see how things would unfold before intervening again. What no one expected was how Julian himself began to change. He started coming home earlier, dining with Gabriel every night, and with increasing frequency he found excuses to drop by the foundation offices. He would simply check on the progress of projects, or so he claimed. In reality, he went just to see her, to listen to her speak about her studies, her dreams, the books she read on public transport, to observe how the light shifted in her eyes when she talked about things she was passionate about. A seed was germinating, slow but sure, a seed of something both of them feared to name. 6 months had passed since Valeria started working at the Vargas Foundation. Winter was yielding to spring, and with the change of season, something was blooming between Julian and her as well. Valeria now divided her time among 3 worlds. The elegant foundation offices during the day, university classrooms at night, and weekends spent in quiet, joyous moments with Gabriel. It was exhausting, but immensely gratifying. Her grades were improving, and at the foundation, her innovative ideas for community programs had caught the attention of the directors. Julian, for his part, found himself thinking about her constantly. The way she wrinkled her nose when she concentrated. How she spoke with her hands when she got excited. Her infinite patience with Gabriel. Small details he would have previously considered insignificant now occupied his thoughts during important meetings. One afternoon, While reviewing reports Valeria had prepared for a literacy campaign in rural areas, Julian made an impulsive decision. He called Valeria from his office. "Do you have a moment?" She entered, professional as always, a tablet in hand, ready to take notes. "Would you like to take a walk?" he asked, surprising her. "There's a park nearby. We could discuss the project outdoors." The surprise on her face was evident, but she nodded. "Of course, Mr. Vargas." "Julian," he corrected gently, his eyes holding hers. "I think after so many months, we can use our first names, don't you? What do you think is the real significance of Julian's shift from Mr. Vargas to Julian? And how might this new routine impact their professional boundaries? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this subtle romantic development is drawing you in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their journey. That first walk became a new routine. Twice a week, they walked together through the park, talking about projects, about Gabriel, about books, about music. Little by little, their conversations became more personal, revealing layers of themselves they had kept hidden from the world. "Why administration?" Julian asked one day, as they watched children play in the distance. "I want to help my community," Valeria responded, her voice filled with conviction. "Create jobs, opportunities. In my village, Pueblo Sol, young people have to leave to find work. I want to change that." Julian looked at her with a mix of admiration and something deeper, something that stirred his very soul. "You're extraordinary. Did you know that?" She laughed, a little uncomfortable but flattered. "I'm just practical. You're the one with an empire, not me. Sometimes I wonder if all this is worth it," Julian confessed, gesturing towards the imposing Vargas Corporation building visible in the distance. Having so much and feeling so little. The silence that followed was charged with meaning. Their gazes met, and for a moment, the world around them disappeared, leaving only the quiet space of profound understanding between them. It was Gabriel who inadvertently accelerated things. One Sunday, while the three of them were visiting a science museum, the boy took Valeria's hand, then his father's, naturally uniting them. "Now we're like a real family," he said with innocent joy. The phrase hung suspended between them, a fragile bubble of truth. That night, after putting Gabriel to bed, Julian invited Valeria to have coffee in the mansion's garden. About what Gabriel said today, he began, his voice a little strained. "Children say things," she interrupted, nervous, trying to dismiss it. "It doesn't mean anything." "What if it did mean something?" Julian took her hand, his thumb gently caressing her knuckles. "What if I wanted it to mean something?" Valeria's heart pounded so hard she feared he could hear it. "Julian, we're from different worlds. You're you, and I'm the girl who came here to clean your house. I don't care where we come from. I care where we're going." That night, under the soft moonlight, they shared their first kiss. A timid, exploratory kiss, full of unspoken questions and the fragile promise of a future. The days that followed their first kiss were like a dream. Secret walks in the garden, late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn, messages that made Valeria smile in the middle of her university classes. Julian felt rejuvenated, as if he had found something he hadn't known he was even searching for. Gabriel, too, observed the changes in his father with a mix of curiosity and growing happiness. "Daddy laughs more now," he commented to Valeria one day while they drew together. But happiness, especially one so unexpected, rarely lasts long without a challenge. Donna Sofia, ever vigilant, noticed the lingering glances between her son and the former employee. One day, while Julian was in a board meeting, she appeared in Valeria's office at the foundation. "I know what's happening," she said without preamble, her voice cutting through the professional calm. "And I will not allow it." Valeria remained calm, meeting Donna Sofia's steely gaze. "With all due respect, ma'am, I believe that is Julian's decision. Do you think I don't see what you're doing?" Donna Sofia scoffed, her eyes narrowing. "First the child, now the father. You're far more ambitious than I thought." The word stung, but Valeria refused to show weakness. "I love Gabriel and Julian, Not for his name or his money. Donna Sofia let out a disdainful laugh. They all say the same, my dear, but we are Vargas. We are legacy, power, responsibility. Feelings are fleeting. When Julian returned that day, he found Valeria quietly packing her belongings in her office. "What are you doing?" he asked, alarmed, his heart seizing in his chest. "I think we should stop this," she responded, her eyes moist with unshed tears. "I can't work here anymore. It's my mother, isn't it?" Julian said, his voice taut with suppressed fury. "What did she say to you?" "Nothing that isn't true," Valeria replied, her voice breaking. "We're from different worlds, Julian. I'll never fit in your life." He took her by the shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "But you are my life now, you and Gabriel. Nothing else matters." But it did matter. The very next day, Donna Sofia convened an emergency meeting of the Ortega Corporation's board of directors. She presented meticulously gathered evidence that Julian was making irrational decisions, influenced by inappropriate personal relationships. "The Vargas legacy is at risk," she declared to the assembled partners. "My son needs an indefinite leave of absence to reconsider his priorities." When Julian learned of his mother's actions, his fury was monumental. But it was also profoundly revealing. For the first time, he saw with crystal clarity what truly mattered, stripped bare of all pretense and expectation. That night, he made two life-altering decisions. First, he would temporarily step down from the presidency of the company. Second, he would ask Valeria to marry him. What do you think of Julian's bold decision to prioritize love over his family's legacy? And how will Valeria react to his proposal after all they've been through? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this dramatic turn has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next thrilling chapter. Julian observed the small house from the car, nestled in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood. It bore no resemblance to the sprawling Vargas estate in Las Lomas. 2 floors, a modest garden. It was perfect. "Are you sure about this?" Valeria asked beside him, her hand intertwined with his. Julian looked at Gabriel in the back seat, who was excitedly watching the new house. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." 3 weeks had passed since the intense confrontation with Donna Sofia and the Ortega Corporation board of directors. 3 weeks in which Julian had not only rejected the temporary leave they tried to impose, but, in a move that stunned the business world, he had tendered his voluntary resignation. "I will completely step down from the presidency," he had declared. "I will maintain my shares, but I no longer want the position." The news had shaken Mexico City's business elite. Ortega heir abandons empire for love. Some newspapers had headlined. Others were less romantic. "Crisis at Ortega Corp. The end of a dynasty." But Julian didn't care for headlines anymore. He had lived too long preoccupied with appearances, with legacy, with what others expected of him. Now all he craved was peace. And he had found it in Valeria's eyes and in his son's radiant smile. The 3 of them stepped out of the car and entered the house. It was spacious by normal standards, though minuscule compared to what Julian and Gabriel were accustomed to. It had white walls, devoid of expensive paintings, wooden floors without Persian rugs, a functional kitchen, lacking the latest high-tech appliances. "My room has a park view," Gabriel shouted, running upstairs, his voice echoing with delight. The boy had adapted surprisingly well to the idea of change. For him, it was a grand adventure. Do you believe Julian's sacrifice of his corporate empire is truly worth the happiness he's finding? What would you give up for true peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of unexpected choices is inspiring you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next heartwarming chapter. That night, they ate pizza on the living room floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes. They laughed as they hadn't in years, free from the suffocating protocols and expectations of their old life. "This is a mess," Julian said, looking around with a genuine smile. "And I love it. We'll organize everything tomorrow." "It will be a home soon," Valeria promised, resting her head on his shoulder. Gabriel fell asleep between them, exhausted by the day's excitement. Julian carried him to his new bedroom, where there was little more than a bed and his favorite teddy bear. "Do you think he'll be happy here?" Julian asked when he returned to the living room. "He already is," Valeria responded, her voice soft with certainty. "Because he's with you, and because now you truly smile." The following weeks established a new normal. Julian began exploring independent investment opportunities, focusing on social startups and sustainable projects that would never have passed the rigid filter of the Ortega board. Valeria, fueled by Julian's unconditional support, continued her studies with more fervor than ever. Mornings were tranquil. Simple breakfasts, taking Gabriel to school, planning the day. Afternoons were productive. Julian in his small, improvised home office, Valeria studying or attending classes. Nights were sacred. Family dinners, board games, stories before bed. "I never thought it could be like this," Julian confessed one night as they washed dishes together. Something he had never once done in his previous life. Simple, real. Valeria smiled. "Real life has its complications too, you'll see." And she was right. The morning after their sleepless night, Julian entered the kitchen with a serious expression. "I've been thinking all night," he said, taking a cup of coffee. "And I think I have a solution." Valeria looked at him, her heart pounding with a cautious hope. "I want to be with you," he continued, his voice calm but firm. "But only if you also want to be with me." "Julian, you know I love you." "But let me finish," he interrupted softly. "I'm not going to try to control you or make decisions for you. I never have and I never will. But I want you to understand something. I don't care what people say. I don't care if I have to fight the whole world for you and for our children." Valeria sat down, overwhelmed by the intensity of his words. "Gabriel and I need you," Julian continued. "But you have to decide if being with us is worth it, despite everything." For the first time since they had met, Valeria felt she truly had the power to choose. This wasn't a decision made out of economic necessity or external circumstances. It was her choice. "I want to be with you all," she said finally, her voice clear and strong. "But I need us to be equals, partners. I don't want to be Julian Vargas's wife. I want to be Valeria Ramos, with my own dreams and goals." Julian smiled, feeling a monumental weight lift from his shoulders. "I would never expect less from you." What profound meaning does Valeria's decision to be an equal partner hold for their future? And how will Gabriel react to this new family dynamic? Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of love conquering all odds is inspiring you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the final heartwarming chapters. That afternoon, when Gabriel returned from school, he found his father and Valeria waiting for him in the living room, their faces radiating a quiet happiness. "We have something important to tell you," Julian began. "Is Valeria leaving?" the boy asked, fear creeping into his voice. "No, darling," she responded, extending her arms to him. "I'm not going anywhere. We're going to face this together, as a family." "What if the kids are still mean?" Gabriel asked, snuggling between them. "Then we'll show them that we're stronger than their words," Julian responded, his voice firm and loving. "We'll show them that true love isn't about where you come from, but about where you decide to go together." Valeria rested her head on Julian's shoulder, one hand instinctively covering her belly where their baby was growing. The decision was made. They would fight together as equals against any adversity. That night, as Gabriel slept peacefully, Julian and Valeria sat on the porch, gazing at the stars. "You know what's the most valuable thing you've taught me?" Julian asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "What?" "That love isn't inherited. It's built every day, with every decision, with every sacrifice." For years had passed since that night on the porch. The small house remained their beloved home, but much had changed. Valeria looked at herself in the mirror, adjusting her graduation gown. Her university degree in business administration would be official in a few hours. Her reflection showed a different woman from the young girl who had arrived at the Vargas estate with a small suitcase and big dreams. "You look beautiful," Julian said from the doorway, holding little Clara in his arms. The 3-year-old girl was a perfect blend of both of them. Valeria's expressive eyes and Julian's mischievous smile. "Mama, princess!" Clara exclaimed, extending her tiny arms. Valeria took her in her arms and kissed her cheek. "Where's your brother?" "Finishing his science project," Julian replied. "He says it's a surprise for you." Gabriel, now 10 years old, had blossomed into a bright and sensitive boy. The problems at school had diminished over time, partly because they had decided to move him to an institution where he was valued for who he was, not for the rumors about his family. "Nervous for tomorrow?" Valeria asked, as they walked downstairs together. "A little," Julian admitted. The next day would mark his official return to Vargas Corporation, not as president, but as a member of the board of directors. After years away, he had been invited back by the very partners who had once supported his forced departure. "You'll prove the same thing you've proven these past few years," Valeria assured him, "that you're more than just a name." The past few years hadn't been easy. Julian had invested part of his personal fortune in his own projects, some successful, others less so. But he had found a new purpose, supporting social ventures that generated a real impact in vulnerable communities, like Valeria's hometown of Pueblo Sol. "I'm done," Gabriel announced, bursting out of his room with a meticulously crafted model in his hands. It was a detailed representation of a neighborhood similar to Pueblo Sol, with small houses, a school, and a community center. "It's my project on sustainable development. I told my teacher about Daddy's work with the cooperatives and how Mama wants to help her village." Valeria felt a lump in her throat. Gabriel had perfectly captured the essence of what they were trying to build together. The graduation ceremony was simple but incredibly meaningful. When Valeria Ramos's name was called, Julian and the children applauded with such enthusiasm that several attendees turned to look at them. Valeria didn't care. Her family was their proud, real. What do you think is the true meaning of a legacy for Julian and Valeria now? And how has Gabriel's innocence been a guiding light in their transformation? Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of an evolving family and profound purpose is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their extraordinary journey. Upon leaving, they were met with a surprise. Donna Sofia waited by an elegant black car. Her relationship with Valeria had been practically non-existent for years. She had refused to acknowledge little Clara and barely sent impersonal gifts to Gabriel at Christmas. "Congratulations," Donna Sofia said, extending a bouquet of flowers towards Valeria. Her tone was formal, but at least not hostile. "Thank you for coming," Valeria responded, accepting the flowers with a cautious smile. "Grandma," Gabriel greeted politely, but without the infectious enthusiasm he showed with his other grandparents, Valeria's parents, who had traveled from Pueblo Sol for the occasion. Donna Sofia observed little Clara, who hid behind her father's leg. The child was undeniably a Vargas, with that natural poise that seemed to be in the family's genes. "She looks like you," Donna Sofia said finally, addressing Julian. "She has her mother's character," he responded, a protective hand resting on Clara's shoulder. The tension was palpable, but there was also something new, something that felt like a silent truce. Donna Sofia would never admit she had been wrong, but her presence there was an undeniable acknowledgement that life continued, with or without her full approval. "There's a place for you tomorrow in the board meeting," Donna Sofia said before leaving. "And for Valeria too, if she's interested. The foundation needs a director with field experience." Julian and Valeria exchanged surprised glances. It was the closest thing to an apology they would ever receive. That night, the family dined in the garden, under the stars. Valeria's parents told stories from their youth, while the children listened, fascinated. It was a beautiful blend of worlds that, against all odds, had found harmony. "Will you accept the position at the foundation?" Julian asked when they were finally alone. Valeria contemplated the question. "I will, but on my terms. I want to focus on projects that truly matter, not just on charity for show." Julian smiled. Valeria's fierce determination was one of the many things he loved about her. I wouldn't expect anything less. The next day, Julian entered the Ortega Corporation boardroom for the first time in 4 years. Most of the faces were new, but the essence of the place remained the same. Power, money, influence. Welcome back, Julian, greeted the current president, an old associate of his father's. Julian nodded. Thank you for the invitation, but before we begin, I'd like to present a proposal to redirect some of our funds towards sustainable developments in rural communities. Some executives exchanged skeptical glances. Others seemed genuinely interested. And to present the project, Julian continued, I've invited the new director of the Vargas Foundation, Valeria Ramos. When Valeria entered the room, composed in her professional suit and with her presentation ready, some of the older executives recognized her. She was the same young woman who, years ago, had served coffee at the Vargas' social gatherings. But now, as she spoke with confidence about development projects, impact statistics, and social return on investment, it was impossible not to see her for what she truly was. A brilliant, passionate woman determined to change the world in her own unique way. At the end of the meeting, Dona Sofia approached Julian. Your wife is impressive, she admitted with some difficulty. I know, he responded, not hiding his pride. That afternoon, upon picking up the children from school, Julian and Valeria felt as if they had come full circle. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. They knew there would be more challenges, more doubtful glances, more battles to fight. But as they watched Gabriel help his little sister into the car, as they listened to their laughter mingle in the afternoon air, they knew with certainty that every sacrifice had been worth it. The love they had built together, day after day, decision after decision, was stronger than any inheritance or name. It was real, imperfect, and completely theirs. Julian's office at Vargas Corporation had a privileged view of Mexico City. From the 30th floor, buildings looked like models and people like tiny ants in perpetual motion. But his attention wasn't on the view, but on the speech he was preparing for that night's event. 2 more years had passed. Gabriel had just turned 12 and Clara, 5. The company was celebrating its 75th anniversary with a charity gala, and Julian had been invited to give the main address, a sign that his return to the corporate world was complete, though on his own terms. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he said, looking up. Gabriel entered, taller than Julian remembered seeing him just last week, as if he grew with every blink. Mama says it's time to go if we want to pick up Clara from her ballet class, the boy announced. Julian smiled. His son now spoke with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was and where he came from. The days of teasing had been left behind, replaced by genuine friendships and the respect Gabriel had earned on his own merits. Tell her I'll be down in 5 minutes, he responded, putting away his speech. Nervous for tonight? Gabriel shrugged with a smile. A little, but Clara is more nervous. She thinks she's going to trip in her new dress. Julian laughed. His little girl was just as much of a perfectionist as he was. In the parking lot, Valeria waited by the family car, not a luxurious vehicle like he used to drive, but a practical SUV where the 4 of them and all the school projects, sports equipment, and dolls that made up their daily lives fit comfortably. Ready to be the star of the night? Valeria asked when Julian approached to kiss her. You'll be the star, he responded. I'm just the guy giving the boring speech. The event was held at the very same hotel where, years ago, Julian had organized that fateful brunch where Gabriel had pointed to Valeria. The irony wasn't lost on them. The Ramos family arrived discreetly, without the pomp that once characterized Julian's entrances at these events. Clara, beautiful in her sky-blue dress, held Gabriel's hand, who guided her with the infinite patience of a proud older brother. Look at them, Valeria whispered to Julian. They're the best thing we've done together. Julian nodded, emotional. His children represented everything he valued now. Authenticity, kindness, strength. The ballroom was filled with familiar and new faces. Dona Sofia, now almost 80, chatted with old partners at a main table. When she saw her son and his family arrive, she did something that surprised everyone. She stood and walked towards them. My grandchildren look beautiful tonight, she said with a strained but genuine smile. Clara, overcoming her initial shyness, hugged her grandmother. Grandma, look at my new dress. Donna Sofia seemed to melt a little at the child's enthusiasm. Over the years, their relationship had improved. It wasn't perfect, it never would be, but they had found a neutral ground in their shared love for the children. There's a place for you tomorrow in the board meeting, Donna Sofia said before leaving. And for Valeria too, if she's interested. The foundation needs a director with field experience. Julian and Valeria exchanged glances of surprise. It was the closest thing to an apology they would ever get. When the time came for the speech, Julian walked to the podium without the nerves that might once have consumed him in similar situations. He no longer had anything to prove, no one to impress. Good evening, he began. 75 years ago, my grandfather founded this company with a simple vision: to build buildings that would last for generations. What he didn't know was that he was building much more. A legacy, a responsibility, a family story. He paused, searching for Valeria's eyes among the audience. She smiled at him, giving him strength as she always did. For years, I believed my duty was simply to maintain that legacy, to preserve it intact, like a relic in a display case. But then, his voice softened. Then I met someone who taught me that true legacies are not inherited. They are built, day by day, decision by decision, sacrifice by sacrifice. From her table, Valeria held back tears. Gabriel took her hand and squeezed it gently. This company has evolved, Julian continued. We no longer just build buildings. We build communities, we create opportunities, and above all, we try to build a better world for future generations. As he finished his speech, the applause was warm and genuine. But for Julian, the true triumph was in the bright eyes of his children, in Valeria's proud smile. Later, during dinner, Julian noticed that Gabriel was unusually quiet. Everything okay, champ? He asked, leaning towards him. Yes, the boy replied. I was just thinking. Remember when we lived in the big mansion before Valeria? Of course. We were richer then, right? We had more stuff. Julian looked at his son, intrigued by the direction of his thoughts. Yes, we had more things. Gabriel nodded thoughtfully. But we weren't happy like we are now. Julian's heart swelled with pride and emotion. His son had understood the most valuable lesson of all, one that had taken him 40 years to learn. At the end of the night, when they returned home, their modest but love-filled home, Julian helped put Clara to bed while Valeria reviewed Gabriel's science project. When they finally reunited in the kitchen, Valeria prepared 2 cups of tea, a simple routine they had established years ago. It was a good day, wasn't it? Julian asked, taking her hand across the table. Valeria didn't answer with words. She just looked at him, and in that gaze was everything. The journey traveled, the battles won and lost, the fears overcome, the joys shared, and above all, the love built day by day, brick by brick, like the most valuable of legacies. Did this story of Julian and Valeria move you? This love that defied prejudice and showed us that true feelings are built with daily decisions, sacrifices, and courage? A family that discovered happiness isn't found in marble mansions, but in shared laughter around a simple table? Tell us what part touched your heart and from what country you are watching this video. Don't forget to share with someone special who needs to remember that true love breaks barriers. And subscribe for more stories that will make you believe in happy endings earned day by day.